Ladies and gentlemen, Norway Chess 2025 is a phenomenal event. We are at round 9. We have got both leaders fighting each other. Magnus Carlsen versus Fabiano Caruana. Gukesh, who seems to have developed a new technique of being completely lost and turning the game around and winning. And we've got Hikaru Nakamura versus Arjun Erigaisi. It is a four-way battle at the top. Fabiano Caruana leads. He's only half a point ahead of Magnus Carlsen, and Magnus Carlsen's only half a point ahead of Hikaru Nakamura and Gukesh. This has been an insane tournament. And of course, from yesterday, my big announcement, we've got the South African flag in the background because South African Open coming up, end of June. I will be playing. But enough about me. Norway Chess 2025. We start with Hikaru Nakamura and Arjun Erigaisi. These two playing each other. Hikaru and Arjun, Hikaru really needs to get the 3 points if he can. So we play like an offbeat, delayed Alpine Sicilian, which is not always what you want to go for when you're trying to play for an advantage. And they play a bit of theory. Bishop to e3. I don't know why my computer's so slow. C takes d4. Lovely move here. Threatening to just fork everything. So even though the pawn's been taken and the bishop's hanging, you can ignore it for the time being. The queen goes back. Now we take. So we really nicely reposition our knight. And then we develop some pieces. We allow the capture of the bishop and the damaging of the pawn structure because we're going to, after takes, play long castles. And this is very interesting because white is going to have an open f file. Black is going to have an open b file and an open d file to fight for. White also has the open d file. And probably black is going to go short. We're going to get opposite side castling. And we're just going to have a fist fight. So bishop to d7. There are now no games in the database at all. They're completely on their own. g4 from Hikaru. Rook b8. h4. Here we go. Fist fight incoming. h6. Arjun hasn't committed to castling just yet. Rook hf1. c5. Bishop to c4. Rook b6. Okay, getting everything ready. Black should probably castle. Queen f2. Not the right move for Hikaru. Hikaru here is better. It's +1. Because his attack is kind of like ready to go. He needs to just commit to g5. He needs to commit to g5 or play queen e4. Centralizing the queen against the king. And, just centralizing the queen. That's basically how I can describe it. So he's got to play one of these two moves. Queen f2 is not quite it. And now rook d6. Rook de1. Rook b6. Rook d1. Rook d6. And they repeat moves and make a draw. So we will see them again for the Armageddons. So Hikaru probably falling a bit further behind. Now, Gukesh, Wei Yi. If Gukesh wins this, he is right there near the top. So he plays e4. We get e5, knight f3, knight f6, and I believe this is the first Petrov, at least the first one that I'm covering. There might have been one in maybe one of the games I didn't cover. But this is the first Petrov. We get knight takes e5, d6, knight back to f3, knight takes e4. And now here, the main line is d4. Gukesh plays something different. He plays knight to c3, the second most popular choice, which invites takes, and the damaging of white's pawn structure. But in exchange for that, white doesn't have any central pawns really. Black does, but white's bishops are open. They're going to have very easy development. Black can't really develop actively at the moment. So we're going to see. So bishop to e7, the best you can. Bishop e3, short castles. Queen d3 from Gukesh. And what he gets is long castles. And now we are also going to get a fist fight. Maybe. This might be like the other game where they repeat moves and make a draw. But it's opposite side castling, king b1, king f8, and these players are just going to hurl pawns at each other and really go for a fight. Knight to c5 hits the queen goes to c4, it gets targeted again and has to go to f4, Gukesh just getting his queen kicked around, d5 though, and he's not thought, look at that, 1:56 on the clock, he's barely thought, Wei Yi under time pressure already, knight to d4, Bishop to d6, queen f3. Gukesh has just found everything. He has spent some time now. Time's more level. But again, everything just flows. Everything just flowing. Sorry, I just need to do something there. h3. prevents, the skewer of the bishop coming here and attacking the rook. C6, G4. You hurling pawns at the king. F5. That is such a beautiful move. I really have to applaud it because it seems so counterintuitive to push a pawn near your castled king. You would rather play like b5 or b5, a5, but it is the best, if not the best move, one of them, to play f5 because, like, what do you do? And here Gukesh goes wrong. He plays g5, which is a mistake, and now Wei Yi is better. Wei Yi is better because we can play f4, the bishop has to retreat, and now he can capitalize. He can play rook a8, and now after rook g1, he's officially better if he plays either knight e4 or b5. So he can start his attack on the queen side, or he can centralize his knight and put it on such a beautiful square, e4, where you really struggle to evict it. You have to go here and trade your bishop for it, and even then you're going to give a pawn, and then these two pawns will be very strong. Instead of that, he plays bishop f5, which is a step in the wrong direction. Knight e4 was best because after takes, we now have c4, which is unbelievable from Gukesh. Really it is. He's got an hour on the clock versus 38. c4 is the best move for white. And it just poses practical difficulties. Now knight to e4, it's too late. Bishop to d3 is a pin. Queen e5, and now another pin with rook de1. And now bishop to c5 allows c takes d5, and rook e2. And here Wei Yi makes a mistake. He plays knight takes d2, which on the surface looks genius. Because it looks like you have to play, king takes d2, which is winning for Gukesh, just by the way. King takes d2 is still winning for Gukesh, but he loses some of his advantage. But what he does find is so disgusting. He finds bishop takes h7 check. Now, if king takes h7, very simply you play queen h5 check, and that queen perishes. So king g8, and then rook takes e5. Then rook takes e5 would occur, and then you'd have queen takes d2. And this would get played, and Gukesh would be completely winning. He'd have a queen and a rook versus two rooks and a bishop. So he's probably winning. It's queen versus rook bishop. And the material balance is plus 2 points for Gukesh. None of that happens though. Bishop takes h7 gets played, so you play king h8. The only way to really keep your queen, because now you might say that queen's hanging, and that queen's also hanging. So let's say you take the queen. What would happen here is you would have knight takes f3. And even if you try and take the rooks, that hangs, the rook hangs, and the bishop hangs. And you might say, but and there's no way to attack this rook or get off the back rank. And this is just completely crushing for Wei Yi. So you can't do that. So we get bishop takes h7, and now we just take the knight back. And even though you can take the bishop, I can take hitting the queen, and now I can play check, g6 check, and this is basically the point I think where Gukesh wins this game, because he entombs the black king. The black king has very few squares to escape. These are really the only free squares. It cannot go here and here. So there are constant mating opportunities. Queen b3 comes, we're threatening various discoveries. So check, sacrificing the bishop, by the way. You can't take it really, because then we'd have queen takes e3 check, and queen takes e3, and f takes e3. And this is still better for white, but you lose all that attacking possibility that you had, and black can start trying to go after your weaknesses and support this pawn. So black has a bit more counterplay. So instead of that, we just have king b1, and now you have to play king h8 to get out of the line of discoveries. And now here, Gukesh finds the best move. He does have a really disgusting move here. F takes e3 is the best move, but he can also play this move f3, which is so brilliant, because the only move is to take the pawn. If you don't, you get mated in one move. That's what you threaten with f3. I just wanted to show that. So f takes e3, rook takes e3, very natural move, and now queen to b4, all the best moves. Rook c8 is not good enough. You're threatening various attacks on the white king, but simply rook c1, and now you can hit the queen again, but queen a5, and yes, king g8, but now b3, which isn't the best move, but it's going to be good enough, because we can take a couple pawns. We can defend our own, not allow your pawn to promote. We can even allow a queen trade. And after rook f5, Wei Yi resigns. He had a minute on the clock. 4 minutes for Gukesh. Gukesh is up 4 pawns. This king is really stuck. You can't really go and win this pawn at the moment, because you'd be giving up that. There's a 3-on-1 on the king side. So even if all of these pawns fall off the board, White's just completely winning. So a brilliant win from Gukesh, and he is right there at the front. And the thing is, right, Hikaru is scoring a maximum of 1.5 points. Gukesh has got 3, so he's gone past Hikaru. And depending on the result, he's going to go past Fabiano or Magnus Carlsen. So let's see who he is going past, depending on the result. If one of them wins the classical game, Gukesh will most likely go past them. I think if Fabiano was a point ahead. So unless Fabiano wins in the classical, if this game ends in a draw, okay, let's get this set up. If this game ends in a draw, Gukesh leads. So he's hoping there is no result in the classical portion. If one of these players wins, they lead ahead of Gukesh. Magnus has got the white pieces, and Magnus Carlsen, when he's looking for form, when he's looking to grind, he plays a Catalan. And not only does he play a Catalan, he goes back to 2021, and he doesn't play the exact same line, but he is happy to give Fabiano Caruana a pawn, a free pawn. Magnus is down a pawn, just free. There was this capture, and he's allowed Fabi to defend it. Normally, you play a4 to not allow, this setup. But he now gets to play knight e5, and now black has to, defend with knight to d5, and he plays b3. You would think e4 right away. No, that doesn't achieve anything. b3. And takes, and now, after bishop d7, bishop a3, looking for a bishop trade. Fabi wants to trade on his terms. Magnus drops his knight back and looks to reroute. Now e4. Why e4 now? Because it's better for white. And now knight to f6, and Magnus just has a Magnus position. The knight is targeting the pawn. So what do? We defend it. Knight to d2. And yes, Fabi has an extra pawn, but he's going to be choking on it, trying to hold on. Look at this. Takes. Magnus gets the pawn back, but he's not really going to be able to hang on to it. Ooh, look at that. b4. Takes. And now we trade one set of rooks, and we don't play rook takes a8 to check. We bring our rook back to c1. Fabiano Caruana is better. The engine says Fabiano Caruana is slightly better. It's minus 0.1, which basically means it's a draw. And Fabi is still up a pawn, but he loses it very soon. Here. Magnus just wins the pawn back. Look at this position, right? How does a player win this? Well, you've got this imbalance, right? White has got this pawn that they're going to push. Black is going to invest in this pawn. Everything basically on the king side of the board is irrelevant, unless you're creating a devastating attack on the king, which is really hard to do. The game is going to be won on the queen side, from A to D files. This is where the game is going to be won. Sorry, I had a misclick. It's going to be about these pawns, maybe these pawns, and fighting for key squares and looking for tactics. So we get bishop to c6, now queen to b2, rook a8, and Fabi is a tenacious defender as well. And we get this. Magnus wins a pawn. He wins the pawn with, rook takes c4. So now Magnus went from down a pawn for the majority of the game. He's now up a pawn. Magnus wins this. It's going to be promoting this pawn. Fabi's going to do everything in his power to blockade it and win it back. That's what he's going to do. Sometimes you give your opponent a pawn. Sorry, I need to take a sip of water here. Sometimes you give your opponent a pawn or material advantage because they've got to sit and try and defend it. Magnus now has to commit everything to defending and not losing that pawn. It's a lot easier sometimes to target something than to protect something. But that pawn is 3 squares away from queening. So you've got your own risks there with giving your opponent material advantage. Rook to c8. Now e5. Bishop hits the queen. We interpose with the knight. Now f5. Look at this. It's looking to shred open the position. Because Magnus also has a bishop for knight imbalance. The queen targets the rook drops back to c1. Queen a7 threatens the pawn, and various things on the king, we take. We're not worried about losing the pawn, because takes, and now we take like this. And now queen d4. We hold everything together, and now we've got 2 passed pawns, which is going to be an even bigger problem for black, and we're threatening this pawn. So queen d7, now king to g2, now queen c6, now h4, and king h8. and rook c2, and Magnus just slowly, he advances his pawn. He brings his king up. Not too much to cause tactics, and he makes sure his king is defended. And here he's just shuffling. He's looking for the right coordination. You see Magnus all the time. And finally, Fabi blunders. He plays queen h5. Here it's not desperate. He's got, 3 holding moves. They're all queen moves. He can play queen c8. He can play queen e6, queen c8, and queen d7. Literally any square backwards. As long as he made a backwards move with the queen, he was fine. He's still holding. But he takes what looks like a free pawn, but allows c6. And king h7 is not good enough because now e6. And Magnus Carlsen is just completely winning. He defends his pawns. He captures another one. He's now not even up 2 pawns. It looks like he's up 2 pawns because these pawns are so close to queening. He's not. He's only up a pawn. But rook a3 and queen e4 is the deciding move because it forces a queen trade. And you cannot stop both pawns. If you go here, for example, I just play e7. And you cannot stop this pawn. Magnus Carlsen defeats Fabiano Caruana in the classical portion and leads Norway Chess. Now let's find out how the other game went. Hikaru versus Arjun in the Armageddon. Oh, what's going on here? Right. Hopefully that didn't spoil anything. Hopefully I clicked it fast enough and nobody noticed. Anyway, Hikaru plays e4. And we get e5. Reminder, Arjun has got draw odds. So he's going to be looking for a draw. And we get a Spanish. And we get an Archangel's variation, if I'm not mistaken. Or like a very classical Spanish. And they maneuver. And they maneuver a lot. You know, a5. They play a bunch of theory. Hikaru plays this in a weird way where he plays rook b1. And he expands on the queen side. It's not unseen before. It has been seen. It has been played. Queen b3. c6 kicks out the bishop. Bishop to e2. Knight to e6, and they've played really typical Spanish ideas. This rook will come out, the knight will come this way, might kick the bishop out, and they've just done this. You know, black has traded pawns, so we've got this kind of settled structure. You know, rook e1, and now bishop takes f3 is a slight inaccuracy, but nothing really major. They're playing a Spanish. It's very maneuvering. We get the knight to f4, so we force bishop to f1. You don't want to just give away your pawn, and the knight's made it to f4. This knight would love to go there. It can't at the moment. And white's going to maybe try and open up this bishop. They've got the queen sitting here. Bishop to c4 in the future maybe. And some active rooks. That's what they're going to look for. g3 kicks out the knight. And now you play a4. So the thing is, white can create a passed pawn on the queen side and allow one. And they have pushed some pawns in front of their king. But everything is so solid. Rook fd8. And now we push pawns. And we centralize the rook. And we bring the bishop. And we don't trade because we want them to take us. So we get this passed pawn. Now they're threatening to take. Because you won't be able to take back. So now we drop the queen back. And now queen e7. Why queen e7? Because it's just a good move. Bishop to d2. Bishop to d6. Targeting the pawn. Now we have to play queen c4. And b5. And I don't know if you've noticed. Hikaru's advantage is just swollen. Arjun has made no recognizable mistake, and yet he's just slowly being outplayed by Hikaru. You know, now we get a6. He's got a critical pass pawn. Black's pawn is too far. White's pawn is 2 squares away from queen. Now rook a7. Now rook ab1. We target the queen. We win this pawn. Now rook ab8, because you can't really trade. But now rook e3. And now queen a1. And now rook b6. And now knight f8, coming back. But now king g2. Knight e6. Queen d6, king h7, the advantage is +4. The advantage with every move has just grown and grown and grown. Now Hikaru wins a pawn and trades the queens. And this is just completely better. We even get a rook trade. And rook b8. And it looks like the pawn's blockaded and you can't win it. Now, look at this, bishop a6. Defends the pawn. But what about knight b c7? Or simply knight c6. Because you can get 2 pieces for the rook, but rook c3 and rook c8, and you can't do a thing about it. You can get knight d7, but e5, and king g6, g4, and Arjun Erigaisi resigns because there's nothing you can do. Where was his mistake? Like, I went back through this game, I'm like, where's his mistake? 1 or 2 slight inaccuracies. Hikaru just played perfectly. A perfect Spanish game where maybe Arjun rushed one or two decisions, miscalculated slightly, misevaluated the position in some time pressure. This is just brilliant. You might say, why is he resigning? Well, look at the Eva bots through the roof, but they don't see that. It's because you're going to push these pawns. These knights are paralyzed, and you're always threatening promotion. So, like, for example, King G5, right? King G5. You play King G3. Now I have King G6, because you don't really want to play... Because you can never play F6, because then I play E4 and I undermine the defense of the knight. Because these knights are tied together. Like, you might say you're up a piece because you've got two knights for the rook. You're not. They're tied together. They're one piece. So there's nothing you can do, and I'm going to push my pawns through. And I'm going to disrupt the defense, or I'm going to just get a pawn through past this king. So, Hikaru Nakamura wins the Armageddon. He gains 1.5 points. So he's gone past Fabiano Caruana, but Gukesh and Magnus are both ahead of him. So it is Magnus Carlsen, it is Gukesh, Damaraju, it is Hikaru Nakamura, and it is Fabiano Caruana. Fabi could still win it, I think. If he would need results to go his way, but I think he might be playing Gukesh. I'm not entirely sure of the fixtures tomorrow, but tomorrow is going to be such an exciting and dramatic. Magnus Carlsen looking for his 7th Norway Chess title, back-to-back after winning it last year. But it could be Gukesh's time. It could be the world champion winning the event and showing that the future of chess is not in the future, it is now. He's already the youngest world champion. He nearly won Tata Steel earlier in the year. I was going back. Brogdonanda won. He lost on tiebreaks. Heartbreaking. But he could win Norway Chess. And that is very, very exciting for the future of chess. Particularly when Magnus Carlsen maybe isn't it anymore. Maybe he's human. We shall see. Check you out tomorrow.